When he was 7 years old, he watched helplessly as his father was beheaded by enemies and his village burned to the ground. 7 years later, the boy returned, driven solely by a thirst for vengeance. Blood for blood. The story takes place in the early 18th century, when relentless wars swept across Eurasia, and even the ancient Kazakh Khanate was not spared. Its archenemy, the Zhauzhürek Khanate, seized the opportunity to invade. Wherever their iron hooves trampled, villages turned to ruins, and herders were slaughtered without mercy. On this day, on the vast Kazakh steppe, several boys played carefree games under the open sky. Suddenly, one of the boys, Sartai, alertly raised his head. The distant thunder of hoofbeats rolled across the horizon. On the horizon, a cavalry unit surged forward, kicking up clouds of dust, advancing with menacing intent. A sense of dread descended instantly, and in the next moment, an arrow struck down their beloved lamb. Soon, one of them, Zhauzhürek, was hit by an arrow mid-run. Sartai cried out in desperation, but Zhauzhürek could no longer rise. The Dzungar horseman gloated over his kill. When another warrior questioned why he would murder a child, the killer coldly replied, "Today's children are tomorrow's warriors." Those icy words cut through Sartai like the steppe's bitter wind as he hid behind a rock. In that instant, a seed of hatred took root within him. And this was only the beginning of the nightmare. The Dzungar horde shattered the peace of Sartai's village, unleashing a merciless massacre. Facing unarmed women and children, the invaders showed no pity. With swift slashes of their blades, blood stained the grasslands red. Sartai's father, a proud and courageous Kazakh man, stepped forward, demanding the release of the elderly, the weak, and the women. But the enemy answered only with a cold declaration. Their blades fell without mercy, and the hero collapsed in a pool of his own blood. Sartai screamed in agony, but no cry could bring his beloved father back. Moments later, his mother was also slain in the chaos. The world crumbled before Sartai's eyes. Under the protection of his family, Sartai and a few other children barely escaped this earthly hell, beginning a life of exile. 7 years passed enough time to transform a helpless child into a young man whose eyes now gleamed like sharpened blades. Sartai, along with his companions Timas and Korlan, struggled to survive in the remote mountains. Returning from a hunt, they brought food to Nazar, the elder who had raised them, and the other orphaned children in their hidden refuge. Under Nazar's guidance, they learned not only the skills needed to survive, but also the mindset of vigilance and warfare. Sartai's archery grew ever more precise. The fear once in his eyes had long since been replaced by burning vengeance. At night, Nazar would recount the epic tales of Alpamis, the legendary Kazakh hero. These stories nourished their defiant spirits, but also deepened their sorrow over their own powerlessness in the face of reality. Nazar often told them, "The Kazakh people have never lacked brave warriors, only a banner to unite them." Sartai and his friends were weary of hiding in shadows. They longed to soar like eagles across the boundless steppe. But Nazar, well aware of the dangers beyond the mountains, constantly warned them against descending recklessly. Seeing the yearning in their eyes, Nazar finally decided to take them to the long-awaited Nowruz festival. The village was bathed in festive calm, wrestling matches, songs, dances, and faces lit by smiles unseen for years. Sartai distinguished himself in the wrestling ring, easily defeating his opponent and claiming a prize. Youthful passion stirred within him as he fell instantly for Zira, the daughter of village chief Rakimjan. Boldly, he approached her brother Kasim, proposing if he won another match, he hoped Kasim would introduce him to his sister. But this tender spark was quickly extinguished. A group of Dzungars suddenly arrived, led by the arrogant Ayur. To everyone's shock, Chief Rakimjan showed no hostility. In fact, he bowed obsequiously to Ayur, welcoming him like an honored guest. This betrayal pierced Sartai to the core. Kasim even snatched away Sartai's hard-won prize and hurled insults at him. It turned out Ayur had already set his sights on Zira and had formally asked for her hand in marriage. To protect his village, Rakimjan had chosen submission. The humiliation of that festival ignited a fire of rage in the hearts of the young men. Back at their hideout, Sartai and Timas confessed a secret to Korlan. The night before, the two of them had killed 2 Dzungar soldiers. Far from being frightened, Korlan's eyes hardened with resolve. The 3 young men swore a blood oath to make the enemy pay for their crimes. They began taking the fight to the enemy themselves, ambushing isolated Dzungar patrols. With precise archery and seamless coordination, they eliminated their foes, one by one. After one such raid, they encountered a group of fellow Kazakhs fleeing for their lives. The refugees' harrowing conditions struck deep. Sartai saw his own past reflected in their eyes. They said the Dzungars had slaughtered their village and stolen their cattle and sheep, so Sartai took them in, and their band quietly grew stronger. Meanwhile, a council of historic consequence was convening across the steppe. Leaders of all Kazakh tribes gathered to decide their people's fate. Some advocated ceding land for peace, choosing survival over honor, but most, hearts aflame with fury, called for open resistance. At this critical moment, the young Sultan Abulkar stepped forward. With impassioned words, he denounced the cowards who sought surrender. His speech ignited the spirit of every warrior present. In the end, the tribes reached a unanimous decision. They elected Abulkar as supreme commander of a united army and formally declared war on the Dzungars. The call to arms echoed across the grasslands. On another front, Sartai's small band waged their own war. They devised clever traps and seized a large herd of Dzungar war horses. En route, they met a regular Kazakh detachment led by Borabai, heading to join Abulkar's main force. Borabai invited them to march together, but Sartai refused. Instead, he traded the captured horses for weapons and armor, continuing his guerrilla campaign. They even returned to Chief Rakimjan's village. During a tense gathering, they openly mocked Rakimjan's cowardice and clashed with Ilyas, a guest the chief had taken in. But Ilyas was no craven. He was a scholar, yet his heart burned with the same patriotic fire. In the end, Ilyas chose to leave with nothing but his books and joined Sartai's growing brotherhood. To gather more intelligence, the team ventured into a marketplace under Dzungar control. There, they witnessed once again the public execution of their countrymen, a sight that stoked their rage to white heat. Sartai learned that the next day, a slave caravan, escorted by his old nemesis Ayur, would depart. A bold plan formed in his mind. He quietly approached his captured countrymen, slipped them a razor blade, and arranged a signal for a coordinated uprising from within. The next day, as the caravan wound through the barren wilderness, Sartai and his comrades suddenly appeared, blocking its path. Facing the arrogant Ayur, Sartai issued a challenge to single combat. Two stallions thundered across the open plain. Steel flashed in the sun, old hatreds and fresh wounds clashing in a deadly duel. After a fierce exchange, Sartai's superior skill prevailed. He struck Ayur from his saddle. Meanwhile, the enslaved captives used their hidden blades to overpower the guards, and battle erupted in an instant. Chaos erupted. The entire caravan was annihilated, and every captive regained their freedom. One by one, they pledged allegiance to the young hero who had saved them. Sartai's name began to spread like wildfire across the steppe. From intercepted letters, they discovered the location of a crucial Dzungar gunpowder depot situated inside the Akzar military camp. An even bolder plan took shape. They would strike directly at the heart of the enemy's arsenal. Ilyas, fluent in multiple languages, volunteered for the most perilous role. Disguised as a messenger, he infiltrated the heavily guarded camp under cover of night. Using quick wit and nerves of steel, he evaded suspicion and crept ever closer to the powder magazine. Meanwhile, Chief Rakimjan traveled to the Dzungar Khanate itself. Knight Jonan stated that he did not want to start a war, but Sartai murdered his son like a bandit. He gave Rakimjan a grim ultimatum: bring Sartai to him alive, or deliver his head. A greater storm was gathering on the horizon. Inside the camp, Ilyas, heart pounding but mind sharp, slipped past patrols and checkpoints step by silent step, drawing nearer to the gunpowder store. He seized the perfect moment and ignited the gunpowder. In an instant, a deafening explosion tore through the night sky, and flames shot high into the air. Sartai and his comrades, lying in wait outside, charged into the chaos. The camp descended into utter pandemonium. Amid the inferno, they desperately searched for Ilyas, and finally found him gravely wounded beneath the rubble. Carrying both a hard-won victory and their injured comrade, this young band of avengers vanished into the vast darkness of the night. Back at their mountain refuge, Sartai was now facing a stern rebuke from Nazar for a reckless raid he had led. Head bowed, Sartai remained silent, accepting the criticism without protest. But his brother-in-arms, Timas, had long been simmering with resentment. Timas believed that every time they fought side by side, all the glory, fame, even the admiration of the village girls went to Sartai alone. The warrior woman Corlin spoke up in defense, insisting they had all long since cast aside thoughts of personal honor or reward, staking their lives together without hesitation. But Timas refused to accept this. Ilyas bluntly called it what it was, pure envy and jealousy. Seeing the argument escalate, Sartai stepped in to stop it. But Sartai's intervention only made Timas feel that he was favoring the others. With a furious roar, Timas stormed off. Neither Sartai's nor Corlin's calls could make him turn back. This rupture marked not only the shattering of brotherhood, but the first step toward an abyss. Alone, Timas wandered the steppe until he happened upon a group of young wanderers who had come seeking Sartai, drawn by his growing legend. At that moment, the jealousy and resentment in his heart flared up once again. He dismissed them harshly, his eyes now utterly devoid of light. Not long after, Sartai found Timas with astonishing news. He had spotted the very man who beheaded his father in the enemy camp. The flame of vengeance roared back to life. Sartai immediately resolved to go. What he didn't know was that behind this burning desire lay his brother's cold betrayal. On the road, Timas confronted him again, demanding to know why all their victories were always credited to Sartai alone. He accused Sartai of showing mercy to enemies, of betraying Corlin's unwavering devotion, and of caring only for Zera, the wealthy chief's daughter. Sartai cut him off, saying they should find their enemy first, everything else could wait. But what awaited them was not vengeance, it was a meticulously laid ambush. Soon after, Timas returned to camp, leading Sartai's riderless warhorse. Feigning grief, he told the others that Sartai had fallen to enemy arrows. The news shattered everyone. Corlin collapsed beside the horse, sobbing uncontrollably. Yet Sartai was not dead. He had been rescued by the wealthy chief Rakimjan, whose daughter was none other than Ziri, the girl Sartai had never stopped thinking about. Under Ziri's tender care, Sartai slowly began to heal. In the brief lull between hatred and war, love bloomed like wildflowers on the barren steppe. Meanwhile, Timas moved swiftly to fill the void Sartai left behind. He urged the group to descend from the mountains and hunt down isolated Zungars for revenge. Someone even proposed that Timas should lead them in search of the enemy. Just then, Nazar arrived and urged everyone to go search for Sartai. But Timas insisted that from now on, they would make their own decisions, no matter what they did. Corlin, guided by a woman's intuition, insisted Sartai was still alive. Her words struck Timas like a thorn driven deep into his heart. When his lie began to unravel, he chose not repentance but total betrayal. He went to the Zungars and revealed the whereabouts of Ziri's family, who were in the midst of relocating. Rakimjan's tribe was ambushed without warning and slaughtered under the Zungar blades. Zir was barely rescued by Corlin and the others, but enemy pursuers were hot on their trail. During their desperate flight, Zir's horse faltered from exhaustion. Without hesitation, Corlin gave her own warhorse to Zir and stayed behind to face the riders alone. Then she turned to meet the enemy, giving her life to embody loyalty and courage. The devoted warrior woman fell, her flame extinguished forever. Meanwhile, the traitor, Taimas, was captured by Nazar and the others and bound to a tree. When Sartai's comrades found him alive, they wept with overwhelming joy. But that joy shattered the moment Ziri returned with the dreadful news. Through tears, she told Sartai how her father, Corlin, and all the warriors had perished and blamed herself for everything. Sartai pulled her into his arms and told her that all the blame was his to bear. At that moment, Taimas, still tied to the tree, heard of Corlin's death and broke completely. He had envied Sartai for having everything, only to become a villain himself. Screaming in anguish, he begged Sartai to kill him and avenge Corlin, but Sartai chose forgiveness. His decision stunned everyone. He untied Taimas, giving him the chance to bury Corlin with his own hands and to seek redemption. Not long after, at the Kazakh Khanat's rallying grounds, Sartai met the future Abalai Khan and learned urgent intelligence. The enemy had reinforced their army by 30,000 troops. A decisive battle, one that would determine the fate of their entire people, was now imminent. On the eve of war, Zir's brother arrived. Honoring his father's dying wish, he blessed Sartai and his sister's union and pledged to fight beside them. That night, by the campfire, Sartai and Ziri shared their deepest feelings, knowing dawn might bring death. When Sartai and his warriors reached the battlefield, they realized the Dzungar main force was far larger than expected. It was too late to send word back for reinforcements. They counted their numbers fewer than 100 men. In that moment of despair, Sartai delivered a speech that would echo through history. These are not 100 soldiers. These are 1,000 vengeful souls, 1,000 hearts resolved to defend our homeland. At his command, this tiny band charged headlong into an enemy army tens of thousands strong. Amid cannon fire and arrow storms, the warriors fell like moths to flame, yet never ceased their charge. Even Ilyas, once mocked as a bookish scholar, now fulfilled his oath with his life. Their fearless assault shattered the enemy's left flank, forcing the Dzungar commander to order a retreat. But Sartai had only one target, the enemy commander, the very man who had murdered his father. Thus began a duel written in fate. Bathed in blood, Sartai finally struck down the warlord. Collapsing into Taimas's arms, he whispered weakly, "I've avenged him." Tears of remorse streamed down Taimas's face. In that instant, the two brothers found final reconciliation and redemption. As the enemy standard fell, the main Kazakh army surged forward with renewed spirit, launching a full-scale counteroffensive. The first light of freedom finally dawned upon this war-torn land. The hero's tale was passed down through generations. Zir's child was given the name of the fallen hero, a name carrying endless hope and remembrance. This victory became the turning point of the war, yet true freedom would not fully arrive until nearly 3 centuries later.